There is time. There was time. There was a time before the first breath, a forest thrushing with the susurrus of gas exchange, a world-scale garden, exosphere grazed by a swollen moon and the nipple of the sea's heaving breast just out of reach. Animals. Then events occur. A man who is a fox approaches an old man and tells him he is and is not a fox, that he has been vexed with this causation. Then the old man replies. The next day, after the funeral of the fox, the old man teaches his student about nothing. The moon swings its lusty urging across the darkened sky. The trees breathe, some after falling, and the old men say nothing. They discuss the soul of a dog. There is time, was time, there was a time before, there was a time before the first breath, a forest thrushing susurrus of gas exchange, a world-scale garden, by swollen exosphere grazed by a swollen moon, heaving the nipple of the sea's heaving breast just out of reach. Events occur. Then events is a fox. A man who is a fox approaches an old man and tells him he is and is not a fox. He has been vexed with causation. That he has been vexed with this causation. The old man replies. Then the old man replies. After the funeral. The next day, after the funeral of the fox, the old man teaches his student about nothing. The moon swings its lusty urging across the darkened sky. The trees breathe. Some after falling. Old men and the old men say nothing. They discuss the soul of a dog. There is time. There is time. There was time. There was a time before the first breath. A forest thrushing with the susurrus of gas exchange. A world-scale garden grazed by a swollen moon and the nipple of the sea's heaving breast just out of reach. Animals. Events occur. A man who is a fox approaches an old man and tells him he is and is not a fox, and is not that he has been vexed with this causation. The old man replies. The next day, after the funeral of the fox, the old man teaches his student about nothing. The moon swings its lusty urging across the darkened sky. The trees breathe, some after falling. The old men say nothing. They discuss the soul of a dog. Time. There is time. Was a time. There was time. A forest. There was a time. Susurrus of gas thrushing with the susurrus of gas exchange, grazed by a world-scale garden, exosphere grazed by a swollen moon and the nipple of the sea's heaving breast. Events time. A man was time before. Events approaches an old man. A man who is a fox approaches an old man and tells him he is and is not a fox, grazed by old, that he has been vexed with this causation. The next animals, the old man replies. The fox, the next day, after the funeral of the fox, the old man teaches his students about the trees. The moon swings its lusty urging across the darkened sky. The trees breathe. Some after falling swings its dark, and the old men say nothing after falling. They discuss the soul of a dog. Nothing. Below us now, the dunes unfold for miles as a quilt dropped out of a transcontinental flight, seen over the sea, falling away from the thrumming porthole window. On the island, there is a lighthouse. It rises over the flat sands which slip sparkling into the Atlantic's salted caressing. There are dogs here. Unmanned on the beaches, German shepherds roam the flockless shoreline, feeding on crab and gifted flight crew scraps. The strays cobble a life here. When they are not hungry, they play, chasing one another into the surf. Then their sleeping legs twitch in their sandy beds as their dreams are hemmed in by the knife blade of the Alps, and they do not count the sheep they chase. Below us now, the dunes unfold for miles as a quilt dropped out of a transcontinental flight, over the sea, falling away from the thrumming porthole window. On the island, a lighthouse. Over the flat sands, it rises over the flat into the Atlantic, which slips sparkling into the Atlantic. There are dogs caressing, unmanned on the beaches. There are dogs here. Shepherds unmanned on the beaches, German shepherds roam the flockless shoreline, feeding on crab and gifted flight crew scraps. The strays cobble a life here. When not hungry, when they are not hungry, they play, chasing one another into the surf. Their sleeping legs twitch in their sandy beds as their dreams hemmed in by the knife blade of the Alps. And they do not count the sheep they chase. Below us now, the dunes unfold for miles as a quilt, dropped out of a transcontinental flight, seen over the sea, falling away from the thrumming porthole. Over the sea, falling away. On the island, there is a lighthouse. It rises over the flat sands, sparkling into the Atlantic. There are dogs, unmanned. There are dogs here. On the beach, unmanned on the beaches, German shepherds roam the flockless shoreline, crab, gifted flight crew scraps. The strays cobble when hungry. When not hungry, they are not hungry, they play into the surf, chasing one another into the surf. Twitch. Then their sleeping legs twitch in their sandy beds as their dreams are hemmed by the knife blade of the Alps. And they do not count. They chase the sheep they chase. Below, the dunes unfold for miles as a quilt, dropped out of a transcontinental flight, falling away from the island. On the island, a lighthouse. On the island, flat sands slip. It rises over the falling islands, which slip their dogs into the Atlantic. Shepherds feeding on the beaches, German shepherds shoreline, feeding on crab and cobble a life here, chasing one another. When not hungry, one another play. When they are not hungry, chasing play into the sand, chasing one another into sleeping legs twitch. Then their sleeping legs twitch in their sandy beds as their dreams are hemmed in by the knife blade of the Alps. The sheep do not count. The sheep they chase. The sun beams in, futuring angles, glinting into vacant air between the corners of tables and cherry muscle car red booth cushions. Another truck rumbles by, rattling the road-facing windows, and the sound dies slow. The sole patron feels it after it is beyond hearing, pulsing up the polished chrome counterstool shaft and through the ring on which he rests his feet. There is sizzling. Then there is not, and the heat wafts from the flat cooktop, mingling with the sun heat building as the afternoon drags on like a limping hitcher. The meal had to have been good, or else the will of the eater. The flavor of salt this far into the desert is the ghost of a sea breeze, pleasant but hurtful. The sunbeams, futuring angles, glint into vacant air between the vacant air between the corners tables, cherry muscle red booth cushions. Another truck rattling by, road facing windows, and the sound dies slow. The sole patron feels it after it is beyond. Pulsing up the polished chrome counterstool shaft and through the ring on which he rests his feet. There is sizzling. There is, then. There is not. And the heat wafts from the flat cooktop mingling with the sun heat building as the afternoon drags on like a limping hitcher. The meal had to have been good. The meal, the will had to have been good. The flavor or the will this far into the desert of salt is the ghost far into the desert. Pleasant, is the ghost, but hurtful. A sea breeze, pleasant, hurtful. The sunbeams in futuring angles, vacant air, glint into vacant tables, cherry muscle red cushions. Another truck by, rattling facing windows, road sound dies. The sole patron feels it after it is beyond patron. After pulsing up the polished chrome counterstool shaft and through the ring on which he rests his feet. Through the ring on which he rests his feet. Then there is, and the heat wafts from the flat cooktop mingling with the sun heat building as the afternoon drags on with the sun heat builds the afternoon meal had to have been good, like a limping hitcher, or else the will of the eater. The meal to have been good, salt this far into the desert. Is the eater of a salt this far into the desert, but hurtful. Is the ghost a sea breeze, pleasant, hurtful. The sunbeams, futuring angles, glint into vacant air between the corners tables, cherry muscle red. Another truck rattles by, rattling the road facing windows, and the sound dies slow. Between the patron feels it after it is beyond hearing. Pulsing up the polished chrome counterstool shaft and through the ring which he rests his feet. There is, then there is not, and the heat wafts from the flat cooktop mingling with the sun heat building as the sun builds on like a limping hitcher, the meal had to have been good. To have been good had to have been good, or the will flavor of salt this far into the desert. To have is far into the desert. Will the ghost is the ghost, the salt a sea breeze, pleasant desert, pleasant. Hurtful, ghost, hurtful, a sea. Like a cut underwater, the earth bleeds seams of cloud into being. They pulse from the green rupture on the ocean's plain, marking from great distance the place of the return. The landing strip is fully equipped with cardboard radar antenna, radio towers all in silent anticipation of a promise made long ago. Messages continue to be received from the pulse of the cloudmaker. The fire rift in the land whispers to its devotees, its thralls, of its monumental indifference. The fire does not react to our dreams. The fire is not aware even that it breaches into the realm of the breathers. It is without sense. Apotheotically continuous, it churns in its glaring ring, unaware. A cut underwater, like a cut underwater, the earth clouds into being, pulse from the green rupture on the ocean's plain, marking from great distance the place of the return. The landing strip is fully equipped with cardboard radar antenna, radio towers, all in silent anticipation, silent promise made long ago. A promise made messages continue to be received. Messages continue to be received. The fire rift of the cloud land whispers to its devotees. Its thralls, the land whispers to its monumental indifference. Its thralls, the fire of its does monumental not react to our dreams. The fire does not react. Is not aware even that it breaches into the realm of the breathers. Not aware it is that it without sense the realm of apotheotically continuous sense. It churns in its glaring apotheotically continuous. Unaware. Churns its glaring ring. Unaware. A cut underwater. Earth bleeds seams. Like a cloud cut underwater. The earth bleeds pulse from the cloud into being. The ocean's plain pulsing from great distance, marking place of the return. The landing strip, is fully equipped. Cardboard radar antenna, all radio towers, all silent anticipation of a promise made long ago. Continue to be received. Messages continue to be received from the pulse of the cloud maker. The fire land whispers to its thralls. Of its monumental indifference. The fire does not react to dreams. The fire is not aware that it breaches into the realm of the breathers. It is apotheotically without sense, apotheotically glaring, apotheotically churns in its glaring ring, churns its glaring ring, unaware. A cut underwater. Early cuts underwater into earth clouds into being cloud into pulse from the green rupture marking ocean's plain marking from great distance of the return. The radio tower landing fully equipped, silent radar antenna, cardboard radar, radio towers, all in radio towers continue to be received. Promise made long ago. A promise made messages long ago. Cloud to be received. Messages fire received. The fire rift of the cloud land whispers to its fire rift. Monumental land it whispers to its monumental does not react its thralls to dreams of its monumental fire dreams. Not aware does not react. Is not aware even that it breaches into the realm of the breather. Not aware monumental it is that it breaches glaring ring of apotheotically unaware fire. It churns in its glaring apotheotically continuous unaware. Churns its glaring ring, unaware. The trees are trees. We can speak of the trees, of how they are trees, of how they appear to be, of their trunks long swilling, of their high thin twigs to remind us they are trees, of their roots concealed, desperate chasming. We can speak of their living, how they appear to live through growth, through permutation, and you will know what we mean to speak of when we speak of the shifting gaps allowing prisms of light to touch the dark earth sheltering below the canopy, the tops of trees, and the source of the light, and the movement of the light, which is everywhere, always, arriving and returning beyond. And do we speak of trees? The trees are trees. We speak of the trees, of how they are trees, how they appear to be, of their trunks long swilling, of their high, thin twigs to remind us they are trees, of their roots concealed, desperate, chasming. We can speak of their living, how they appear to live through growth, through permutation. And you know what we speak of when we speak of the shifting gaps, prisms of light touch the dark earth sheltering below the canopy, the tops of trees, and the source of the light, and the movement of light, which is everywhere, always, arriving and returning beyond. And do we speak of trees? Trees. The trees are trees. Speak of we speak of the trees. How they are trees. How they appear to be. Their trunks long swilling. Their high thin twigs to remind us they are trees. Of their roots concealed, desperate, chasming. We can speak to live of their living growth. How they appear to live through growth. Through permutation, we speak of what we speak of, shifting prisms of light, shifting gaps, touch prisms of light, the dark earth sheltering below the canopy, the tops of trees, the source of the light, and the movement of light, everywhere, always, arriving and returning beyond, arriving. And do we speak of trees? We speak. The trees are trees. We speak of the trees, of how they are. Speak of how they appear to be, how they are. Trunks long swilling, how they appear. Of their high thin twigs to remind us they are trees. Their high thin twigs. Speak of their roots to remind us they are trees. They are. We can speak of their living, how they appear to live. Their high thin twigs through permutation remind us. Permutation. They know what we speak of when we speak of the shifting gaps, prisms of shifting, touch the dark earth sheltering below the canopy, live through tops of trees, and the source of the light, the canopy, the movement of the light, which is everywhere, all prisms of light, arriving and returning. Touch and every source of always light, arriving everywhere, returning, always. We speak, returning, speak. Bounding, the ram runs uphill, all oblique and woodily stiff. Shallow among the open gorse and weather-rounded lichened angles, spotting the hilltop where the land is hashed with fences and manifold egging boulders, sees the sky as though some unseen thing within were ready to hatch bursting and own it, casting shadow down upon the ragged downy creatures left here to wander dangerless, who have lost the impulse to peer cloudward, seeking threat from thinner air. The stratosphere, the wisp-making layer of bloodless winds that starshine penetrates, always leaking its pale light, too green to see, lavishing us with color somewhere between bone and night, shielding us from our memory of time, which is itself a kind of death. The ram runs uphill all oblique. Bounding, the ram runs uphill, shallow, all among open gorse and weather-rounded lichened angles, spotting the weather-rounded lichened angles. The land is hashed with fences, where the land is hashed manifold egging boulders, sees the sky as some unseen thing within were ready to hatch bursting. Casting shadow down on ragged creatures left here to wander dangerous, who have lost the impulse to peer cloudward, seeking threat from thinner air. peer cloudward, seeking threat, the wisp-making layer of bloodless winds. Stratosphere, starshine penetrates, wisp-making layer, pale light, bloodless wind to see. Starshine penetrates somewhere between bone its pale and light, shielding us lavishing from our memory with color somewhere, which is between bone and night, a kind of death, shielding us. Memory of time, which is a kind of death. Bounding, the ram runs uphill, all woodily stiff, shallow among open gorse, wood-grounded like shallow spotting open spotting hills hashed with fences, like a land is hashed with fences, hilltop, the sky, manifold egging boulders, manifold boulders bursting, and some unseen casting shadow down upon some ready to hatching bursting left here to wander, casting shadows down on ragged creatures, threat from left to wander, the stratosphere, lost, the wisp-making layer, cloudward, seeking threat penetrates thinner air, its pale light, stratosphere, bloodless winds, wisp-lavishing layer, starshine, bloodless winds, always starshine penetrating light from our memory of time, its pale light color itself, lavishing with color somewhere, night between bone shielding us, shielding us, which is memory of time, a kind of death, which is a kind of death. Bounding, the ram runs uphill, all ableat and woodily stiff. The ram runs uphill, the ram runs uphill, all wood stiff, woodily shallow among open gorse and weather rounded like spotting hilltop, unseen thing within. The land is hashed with fences, boulders, manifold egging sky, uphill some unseen thing among gorse, cast a hatch burst like a creature. Air, casting shadow down on ragged, manifold layer of bloodless to wander sky, seek threat, some lost pale air, peer cloudward, seeking bloodless winds, color somewhere between stratosphere, wander lost, always making layer, pale light, bloodless cloudward, seek starshine, color penetrates always bone, its pale light. Lavish wind with color somewhere, starshine between bone which and always shielding color, memory shield of time, us, which is memory, a kind of death, which is kind. An old Chinese man told a story about another old Chinese man saying nothing about a dog's soul. In Cape Verde, stray dogs roam the beach, their square jaws genetically loyal to a continent which abandoned them. At the counter of the day-lit all-night diner, a lone, unthinking man lifts stray grains of salt with his fingertip and feels satisfied. And in Micronesia, a volcano's cauldron of naked magma roils and glares. In Dublin, moonlight licks the dewy lawns, and two people slip through a fence break around the green to argue about love in the boughs of a fallen tree. And rocking somewhere on a plane or a train, the filmmaker smiles, then wakes from his dream and looks straight-faced out the window into solid blackness. An old Chinese man told a story about another old Chinese man saying nothing about a dog's soul. In Cape Verde, stray dogs roam the beach, their square jaws genetically loyal to a continent which abandoned them. At the counter of the day-lit all-night diner, the all-night diner, unthinking man lifts stray grains of salt with his fingertip and feels satisfied. And in Micronesia, a volcano's cauldron of magma. In Dublin, moonlight licks the dewy lawns, and two people slip through a fence break around the green to argue about love in the boughs of a fallen tree. Around the green somewhere on a plane or in the boughs of a tree. Filmmaker smiles, then rocks from his dream on a plane or a train out the window. The filmmaker smiles, blackness, then wakes from his dream and looks out the window into blackness. An old Chinese man told a story about another old Chinese man
told a story
about
man told
a story
saying nothing
in
about
Cape Verde.
stray dogs roam the
beach.
In Cape
Their
Verde,
square jaws
dogs
roam
roam
the
the
beach.
continent.
Dogs
Which
roam
abandoned
jaws loyal to the continent
of the
which
daily
abandoned the all-night
jaws.
diner alone.
Continent
At the counter
man lifts
of the all-night
grains
diner
of salt with his
counter,
fingertip.
a man lifts grains of salt with his fingertip. Man lifts grains
of
volcanoes
cauldron
salt of naked magma
fingertips
in
and
Micronesia.
flares.
A volcano's
In
cauldron
Dublin,
of
moonlight
magma
the dewy lawns
royals and magma
flares.
slip through a fence break
Glares.
around in Dublin to argue about love.
Moonlight
licks
the
fallen
lawns,
trees, and two people
rocking
through a somewhere on a plane
around
for
green
train to
the
argue
filmmaker
about
smiles
love in the boughs
of a
and
tree.
wakes from his dream
Boughs
and looks
and a
straight
rock
tree out the
on a
window,
plane
rocking
into
or a
solid
train.
blackness.
The filmmaker smiles, then
Maker
awakes from his dream
smiles,
and looks, wakes out the window, dream into blackness, window, blackness. A man told
An
a
old
story
Chinese
about
man
another
told
man,
a story about
saying
another
nothing
old
about
Chinese
a
man
man,
told
saying
a
story
about a
dog's soul.
in Cape Verde,
Man saying
Cape
dogs
Verde,
roam the
stray
beach.
dogs roam the beach.
Dogs
jaws
square
loyal
jaws
to
genetic
dogs
dogs
which
roam
abandoned them.
which abandoned them.
Beach.
At the counter,
jaws
the all-night
of the daylit
diner,
continent.
diner, alone.
A man lifts
thinking
grains of
lifts
salt
counter
with his
grains of
fingertip.
salt with his
Diner.
fingertip. And
feels satisfied.
Man lifts grains,
And
in
in
Micronesia,
Micronesia,
a volcano's cauldron naked magma
roils
roils and glares.
Cauldron.
In Dublin, moonlight
In Dublin,
magma
dewy
roils.
lawns.
Moonlight
Two
licks
people
the
through a
lawns
fence break
around
two people
people
to
argue
through
about
a fence
love.
break
Boughs
around
around
the
the
tree
two people
to
argue
argue
about love
rocking
in the
boughs of a
somewhere
tree,
on a plane
argue
or a train.
and
The
rocking
filmmaker smiles
on a
plane,
plane
then wakes
or
from
a
his
train
dream and looks
The
straight
filmmaker
smiles
smiles
out the window,
plane
then awakes
into
from his
solid
dream and
blackness.
looks. Maker
Out the
smiles,
into
wakes,
blackness.
dream, looks, window, blackness.